Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Greg Schmidt. I'm an application engineer with Precision Roll Grinders. Today's webinar is going to be, in some ways, a recap on our application engineering webinar, as well as really hammering home one thing that we truly believe in here at PRG, which that grinding and servicing your rolls is not a maintenance cost, it's an investment opportunity. Now, at Precision Roll Grinders, one of the things we really want to concentrate on is showing you that investment and the value it's bringing back to you. We use design of experiments to work with your process and your personnel to really show how specifically we are returning that value in these experiments. These experiments that we do, myself as an application engineer, as well as others that work here, we use the DMAIC process. The design of experiment, the measurement of the current process, so the before and after when we've freshly serviced your rolls or done the grinding on them, and we analyze the data with a Six Sigma process. Every application engineer and every person who works on these studies is green or black belt certified in Six Sigma. We use Minitab to analyze the data, and with that we can make recommended process changes to help improve the process, and then also to help stabilize or control the process. We've had multiple projects that we have worked on here that we have actually come up with a mathematical equation to predict when your rolls need to be changed out or serviced. You know, if you leave the rolls in a machine too long, then it's quite possible that you are throwing product away or you are having to slow down your production process. And similarly, with leaving them in not long enough or changing them out early, you are throwing away that money, both in the costs of the shutdown and the product that you're not producing as a result of that shutdown. So at PRG, we specialize in our grinds. We have world-class grinding equipment. We have the highest grind tolerances in the world for this kind of equipment. On top of that, we have world-class optical properties as well as the surface finishes. And both of these go back to the one goal, is that with process improvement in your process, one of your main goals should be to reduce the variables involved, to narrow down where a problem might be coming from. And that's exactly what we are doing with our products and services to you. With our rolls, you know they are ground to the highest tolerances, you know they are done correctly. And so it's eliminating one of those variables in your process. It's one less variable that you have to consider when you're looking at how to improve the process. Obviously with the grinds, world-class tolerances, but the surface finishes as well are extremely important. I wouldn't say it's overlooked, but a lot of times surface finish is considered something that, you know, isn't difficult to do. And while this may be true for some cases, one of the hardest things with the surface finish is being able to do it over and over again consistently. You know, sometimes it might be able to hit the surface finish here or there, but it's not consistent. We consistently hit the same surface finishes every single time. And then as a result of these world-class services, again, we want to do a study. We want to look at your process and show, you know, where that value stream is coming back to you. So something very unique to PRG is how we grind our rolls. We do not grind rolls in the bearings. The bearings are removed and the rolls are ground on the journals. This is especially critical for those high tolerances because you have the clearances in the bearings and the housings, and you have to eliminate those to get that proper tolerance on your roll. If the bearings are not removed, then it might look in the measurement process that the roll is round, when in reality it's not. Those bearings have to be removed to truly see if that roll is round. Roll roundness obviously is very important in all production processes, but you know, it's something that's very important in paper production. You can see in this bottom left picture an extreme case of barring in a roll on the nip impression paper there. And that's the reason you want those high tolerances. If that roll is not round, you're going to either experience barring in your roll immediately upon installation, or if not immediately, it's going to be rapidly produced on the surface of the roll. And that's going to result in a lot of scrap as well as a lot of strength variation, so a lot of quality problems in that product. So the roundness is extremely important with that. Centered roll crowns as well are also important. In a variety of processes, if the crown is not centered, for example, in a rubber calendaring process or any calendaring process, you're going to see an inconsistent thickness or caliper in your process. In paper industry, you might see increased moisture on one side of your web to the other. So that crown is incredibly important to, once those rolls are under load, you want them to be completely flat. PRG is often associated with the calendar stack inside a paper machine, but we specialize in all the rolls in that paper machine. Press roll performance is incredibly important in the paper machine. This is, directly responsible for a lot of the moisture content in that paper. With proper press roll performance, you're going to reduce those moisture streaks, and as a result, most likely you're going to be able to increase your machine speed, resulting in higher production or increased profits. These are actual numbers that were taken from a customer of ours that show how you can increase the speed of your machine by reducing those moisture streaks. You can see there at the top, the before real speed was 2,500 feet per minute, and after was 2,525 feet per minute. And looking at it on here, it might not seem like a lot. It's 25 feet per minute, out of 2,500. It doesn't seem significant. But you can see once you start looking at how much more production, in this case, 12 tons extra per day, you end up with a yearly increased production of over $1 million. It adds up very, very quickly, just that slight increase in speed. And actually, as a result of that, one thing that should be said is by reducing those moisture streaks, you're also saving costs in your dryer section. You're not having to dry that moisture out in the dryer section, which can cost a lot of money. Concentricity is something that we take into a high account here when we do roll grinds. It's something that sometimes is overlooked or not considered as important as the other dimensions on the roll. And it's incredibly critical. If a roll is not concentric, you're going to experience a lot of the same problems you would see in other areas if you had other dimensions that were not ground to the right tolerances. Concentricity is very, very important. This was another study that was done. This was actually in the agricultural industry, and we obtained close to 10,000 data points by hand and analyzed the data. And as a result of our roll grinds, we reduced their out-of-spec product by over 50%, which obviously is just a massive gain. And the return on investment here for the cost of the grind was a few days. So as you can imagine, you can see this throughout all different industries, through paper, plastics, rubber, seed oil. You can calculate that return on investment, which is what we want to show you guys. Roll life and startup. This is a very common graph that we use. It's, again, was done on an actual study. As you can see, that commonly used OEM tolerance of 2/10 versus a roll grind to 8/10. And you can see just a rolled 6/10 more than a 2/10 tolerance is starting essentially at the same wear level, so to speak, as that roll grind at 2/10 after a year. So that's where that roll life comes in. It's when it's ground at 8/10, it's only going to last you 6 months before it hits that point where it needs to be reground. By starting at 2/10, you're adding a year onto that, onto the life of the roll. So back to the calendar rolls as well with the barring. Again, with the scrap reduction, or excuse me, the scrap created by barring. You can see an example in that left-hand picture there, the corrugation on that reel spool. And by having that properly ground calendar roll, reducing that barring or eliminating that barring, you see massive, massive savings on reel spool losses. Again, you can do the estimates, you can run your own numbers, and see, what kind of savings you're getting, but oftentimes it's upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year just in reel spool savings. For all our customers, we like to work with them, and sometimes before doing a study and using actual data, we can do an estimate, just using a simple spreadsheet to see, with our history and other customers, what we might be able to save you, or whether it be in scrap or increased production. Now, this is just an estimate, and I think everyone realizes that, and that's why we like to do those in-depth Six Sigma studies, is taking this from being just an estimate to providing you with an actual number of how much you saved or how much increased production or profit was made. At PRG, we are a full service facility, meaning we do everything for rolls. There is very little that we cannot do in-house at a PRG facility. Journal repairs, new roll repairs, old roll damages, NDD testing, non-destructive testing. We can modify existing rolls to, fit changes in your process, roll rebuilds with suction rolls, balancing, you name it, it is done in-house at PRG. Two of the things I want to discuss on that list were bearings in this case. So bearings are very important in your process, just as important as a grind. If your bearing is worn or is damaged, no matter how well that roll is ground, it is not going to run correctly. So at PRG, we do inspections of the bearings and housings, but on top of that, we bring in the OEM or representatives from your OEM manufacturer for that bearing, and they will do an inspection and provide a report to you as a customer, deciding or saying whether or not that bearing is still good to use, all the clearances they've measured, or if the bearing needs to be replaced entirely. Heated rolls are also another thing we do in-house here, specifically cleaning the passages and heating rolls. If those passages are not clean, you're going to have an uneven temperature distribution on that roll. And as a result of that uneven temperature distribution, you can actually see the roll geometry change, or in this case, you can see there on the third bullet point, thermal runout. This is going to have the same effect as an improperly ground roll, because you have a roll that's enlarging in one spot as a result of the heat. Also reduces the sheet scorching and hot spots, and as a result of all this, you can also increase your production speed. So obviously things with COVID or restrictions are being lifted slowly but surely. However, since this has been going on so long, we understand that there's a change in the way, the workforce functions and how we do work with our customers. And as a result, we expect to see, and, we expect to continue having a virtual partnership with many of our customers. This might be through online conference calls, telephone calls, whatever it might be. And, obviously, if possible, we want to get in there and see you in person. But again, we're not going to eliminate that virtual partnership, because we understand that that's going to be a continuing thing from here on out in our business. In addition to that, we also do the virtual value-added services. This goes back to our Six Sigma style studies. In a lot of cases with your production line, you may have data that can be, sent via Excel or whatever it might be. We can take this without ever entering your facility and analyze it and send it back to you. We don't have to be there in person to always do these things. So in a case where we cannot enter, we can always do it remotely if possible. So again, PRG, we want to show where that value stream is coming as a result of our rolls. We want to do that experiment with you. We want to look at that data and ultimately show you why that grind is an investment to you, and it is making you or increasing profits or reducing scrap and saving you money. That at the end of the day, that is what we are looking for. As always, if you guys ever need to get in touch with us, we have our 4 facilities in Allentown, Carrollton, Lewisport, and Texarkana. These 4 facilities are servicing all our domestic as well as international customers. We are open 24/7 for emergency work if ever need be. And you can always contact us with questions, whether it just be about your process, get a quote or a consultation. We're always there for you. And so with that, I do want to end with, grinding is not a maintenance cost. It is an investment, and we want to show that to you. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I will stay on here for a minute or two. If there are any questions, post them in the chat and I will answer them. But if not, I appreciate everyone's time and thank you all for coming. Have a great afternoon.